Good morning, welcome back to Reaper Pro-Tips with me, your host, and Disembodied Hands, Queenie, Disembodied Beard John, and, Kiki? No. Kiki wandered up, and I thought maybe there would actually be a Kiki. But I don't think so. What are you doing? She's like, you're being boring. You're so boring, Mom. You're so boring. Turgeon, thank you for the resub, 33 months. Awesome. Clavicus with the 46, not to be outdone. Very nice. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Awesome. Good morning. 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 Today, I'm hoping the last of my, I guess today and tomorrow, because I probably have to drop off a sample tomorrow, but hopefully my health stuff will be all done. Dunsies. At least for the time being. That's the goal. Get it all resolved this week, or all entered in this week. Then I'll have a follow-up after I get back from Arizona. But hopefully, soon it will be all gone. All gone. But yeah, so that's where I am today. Just waiting for things to be over. Let's see here. I've got a whole bunch of things out here on my workstation that I do not need. All right, that's all good. Yes, because as usual, I forgot to put away yesterday's paint. So, trying to make a habit of putting away the day before's paint. Certain paints are special enough that they get to stay out and hang around with me. However, these are not. So there we go. And as usual, I didn't have time to finish my tea. We got the refrigerator resurrected yesterday. It failed. It made it save. Made it save versus death. So it only cost us $600 instead of $2,000 or whatever it would normally be to buy a new fridge. I don't know. I didn't price them. I was afraid to price them. So yes, apparently there was only one of the two control panel parts that were even available anymore, and the one that we replaced did the trick. Which the guy said was 50 to 80% chance. He's like, somewhere in there. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Fridge never left. It was just dying. It was pretty dead, Blue Nine. We had to get a repair guy come out. And it's a 10-year-old fridge. The previous owner was the one who bought it, so the previous house owner. So we didn't have a warranty or anything. Was just flying by the seat of our pants, hoping that they would fix it, and they did. Let me see here. I need to get my skin colors out. Doing a PDF for the $5 tier of my Patreon right now about my favorite skin mix, which is actually an easy skin mix. So I'm looking forward to finishing that. I have to do some sample swatches today and things, but it's the skin tone that I used on this lady. Or that's one evolution of it. It's actually a very versatile skin mix that can do at least 4 different skin tones. So, just with 2 colors plus white. So we will be talking about that. On my, yes, the fridge was repaired. It was successfully, it made it save versus death. It was a 50-50. But it rolled high. So, it appears to be good. I checked it again this morning, and it was functional. It was still cold. So, yes. So that's the best case scenario. That's good. Hope I'm not using up all my luck on the fridge. Let's see here. What do we got? Gnome flesh. Yeah. We're going to go, now that we've got our very reddish main tone down, I'm actually going to go more with standard gnome flesh. And plus probably either white or Osirian sand. It doesn't really matter which, but if I want to shift it warmer, I'll choose more of a golden color to bring this skin tone up with. I also have some ruddy leather that I can mix into the gnome flesh for darker shadows on some of this stuff. It's very easy to go too light with skin when you're starting out. You think that you want a fair skin tone, and so you start out, even when you start with your shadow, you tend to go too light. But in reality, you actually want deeper shadows, even on a fair skin, when you're working on a model this small. So, so yes, I have refrigeration again that isn't tiny fridge and cooler and wine cooler. So I Of course, before reloading the refrigerator, we have to clean it because it's just a wreck. Everything needs to be cleaned. Needs cleansing. I'm using Ruddy Leather for this because if I need to take it down to skin tone, I want to use a reddish brown. This is more of a brown than a red, so that's kind of where I want to be. If I go too red, it's going to create a blush color, so if I use something like Auburn Shadow or Mahogany Brown, it's going to be more of a very red color, which on some models maybe you would want. But I think I want to try this first, so I'm going to put 1 drop of Gnome Flesh into 3 drops of Ruddy Leather and see what kind of shadow it gives me. Boom. But yeah, so things are slowly, my disrupted environment is slowly returning to normal, meaning that I will once again have the energy for creative things. I always underestimate how much this impacts my mental when crap is out of whack. I'm always like, it's not that important, and then I totally get disrupted. So that lightens my Ruddy Leather a bit. I'm going to keep this and thin it. This is almost a saddle brown color. It's very close to saddle. You could use saddle instead if you have bones colors. Although saddle is a little more muted. But I'm going to use this as a bit of a glaze in shadows just to take down my shadows. And because I'm using it, I'm thinning it so much, that's why I'm keeping it darker. Because remember, when you thin down acrylic paint, it will dry lighter when you're adding a lot of water. Ugh, twisted over, yeah. Just get lots of rest, drink lots of fluids. You know the rules. You've been around this block before. Eat your veggies and your green stuff and your vitamin C. Oh, leftover ribeye. Yum, yum, yum. Yeah, we went out too. We had a very nice dinner. We did not have leftovers, however. It was all devoured. Alright, so I'm going to come in. I'm going to put these in some shadows. So just up here, where things are a bit darker, I do need to mix up a little bit of my regular gnome flesh, so that I have something to mix with if I need to blend. David had a strawberry and cream Napoleon, and I had a mousse cake last night. We went out to our favorite place, and they had a prefix, but it was individual. They give you some choices. You know, they have like 4 choices for each course, but usually we order a bunch of things and just share them. So it was a rare opportunity to like order things that the other one didn't like. We still shared some of it, but so we each got our own dessert. I was happy with my chocolate mousse cake with bourbon caramel sauce. And David was happy with his strawberries and cream Napoleon. So I'm just doing a little bit of layering here. The last time David bought us tissue, he bought it at Trader Joe's, and I've got to say, I have seldom experienced a more inferior tissue than the Trader Joe's ones. He already knew, but I berated him anyway never to buy them again. Because when you're going to go through a whole box of the dang things, you want to spend on the good soft stuff, otherwise your nose ends up terribly chafed. Alright, so we're just shading. You can see a little bit of that shadow coming in there. Yes, exactly, Big Chimpo. It's just terrible. Like, there's no reason for that. We have the technology to go to the store and buy soft tissues. We should do it. They're not even that much more expensive than the regular tissues. So just pretty much layering in. Want to get some of the shadows up in there. It's still light enough that it'll show up when I start putting the dark in up here. And of course I'll have my lining already done. But I wanted some contrast between the roots of the wing and like the outer edges of the wing. So that's why I decided to come back in with this mix. I'm going to also apply it to the foot to bring out some of the details on the foot. See, I didn't dare show this model at the end of the stream yesterday, or Luca would have been back on today. He would have taken one look at this tiny little foot, and he would have been there. So I was sneaky. Oh, I can't use the lotion ones. The lotion ones make it worse. I haven't, apparently, like, I have a reaction to the lotion ones where they just make my allergies worse. So if I ever use a lotion one, I actually get worse sneezing. Worse sneezing, worse runny nose. So the lotion ones are like, nope, a huge nope for me, to the point where I have to check a box of Kleenex when we're in a hotel just to make sure it's not lotion. So be aware. If you have allergies, be careful of those lotion ones because they can actually backfire on you. I always opt away from them just in case. Once I learned that, I was like, it was like I was having normal allergies and I used one of the lotion ones and it got worse and worse and I was just like, what's going on? And then I switched away from the lotion and Kleenex and suddenly everything was fine. So just be aware. Yeah, because if you have an allergy to the fibers that they use in the tissue, Blue 9, I could totally see that. Yep. Well, it depends, Twisted Oma. What you should do is buy a box of Kleenex that doesn't have lotion. Just buy the soft puffs or something, or the soft Kleenex. Use those and see if your symptoms lessen. Because if you do tend to have allergies, you just gotta give it a try. If your symptoms don't change, then you know that you're fine with the lotion ones. But I personally have proven a reaction to them. So I always warn people, you may think that it's better, but it's not necessarily better for everybody. It's kind of why I suspect I see a lot less of the lotion ones in the stores now. At least around here. If they're not pushed the way they used to be. And I wonder if it's because people just stop buying them. But yeah, just be aware if you, especially if you have a lot of allergies, I would say. I do have some environmental allergies and pet allergies, so I'm like, it was just so weird because I was just using it and it got worse and worse and worse. I'm like, huh? So yeah, I did the test. So yeah, you may not have a reaction at all, but it's worth kind of just checking it out. It's worth getting a box of each and kind of seeing. So just shade it a little bit, added a little bit more dimension to the foot there. Let's get in better focus. Probably, but you know, just check it because you may not need it. You may not need to switch, but I always like to warn people. Interesting, Big Jimbo. Yeah. If you're prone to other allergies, I'd just test it. But yeah. Alrighty, so under the arm, adding a darker shadow. Side of the face. Top of the face here, near where the hair falls over the eye. Just adding extra shadows. Yep. Oh, interesting. And whatever goes into Kleenex. Yep. Nice. Yeah, it was good that you were able to isolate that. That's always the best. When you're able to isolate what the cause is. So just like in my Fast Faces video, although I won't be using a wash for this, but I do always shade, put extra shading under the brow ridge to make that shadow. Yeah, the original Bones one is just not very good because the detail is too fine on this model for it to look good in original Bones Twisted Oma. I refused to paint the one in original Bones. Hate to say it. Sorry, Reaper. Had to say it. But this is one. There are plenty of regular Bones models I've painted over the years, but this model, she's too fine, and the goblet and everything. Get a little bit of a shadow in here. So as we get those shadows in, we start to get a nicer look. Got a little bit of extra shadow I didn't want there. So you can see how the shadow under the cheekbone and around the eye and under the hair really adds to the face. I also did the bottom lip. This one is actually not Bones Black. It's, I think it's the Bones USA. I don't know. I don't want to pry her off the sticky tack. These days, I'm afraid I'm just like Luca in one way, which is that I really want to paint either the 3D prints or the Bones USA because I just find the quality, the detail quality, to be superior. In one way. Yes, notice I made that stipulation. In every other way, I am totally anti. I'm the opposite. I'm the anti-Luca. From my desaturated skin tones to my lack of foot fetish. And I also don't use like an Optivisor. I don't wear scanty tank tops in the summer. I don't make constant innuendos. Boy, the list goes on, don't it? But it's good. It's good because we need contrast, right? If we're going to have a couple of different mini painters, streamers for Reaper, obviously we need variety. I'm just testing here. I think I want to thin this gnome's flesh a little bit more, but I'm going to do a quick layer here with really fine brush strokes. That's better. I'm going to do a quick mix. Hold on. Need to mix up my original shadow tone, the pinkish one. Just so that I can have everything that I need. So, 1 second. Yeah, I think Quindy is probably happy, like she can watch my stream and get her blood pressure lowered before she has to wrangle Luca's stream and get her blood pressure pushed through the roof. Presumably, Luca is more relaxing to watch when you're not modding him. But I don't know if I want to make that assumption. Yeah, if you have one of those push button cars, you're ahead of me, so no more complaining, Twisted Oma. I don't have a car. Both David and I still have cars that require regular keys to turn on, so we're behind you in car automotive technology. We are not spoiled. Hashtag not spoiled. When I get rentals these days, I'm always kind of like, oh, it's one of those. Oh, this does not belong up here either. Get down there, you little brown. Rustling around up here where you don't belong. There, all right. Let's do a quick mix, make sure I've got it nailed. Yeah, I think so. There it is. More or less. Could put a little more red in it. So now we've got all of our, there's our original color, then we've got our gnome flesh straight up, and then there's our ruddy leather with 1 drop of gnome flesh in it for our kind of glazy, shadowy color. So we've got 3 different colors now. All in like a skin tone, like a red-brown skin tone triad. Every other streamer, so. Most of the time you go easy on him, huh, Wendy? Let's get a little bit of water into this paint. There we go. But yeah, it's really weird, like, now that my health stuff is almost done and the fridge is fixed, like, suddenly I feel so creative. Like, don't underestimate, guys. This is something that my favorite coach says, too. The way she puts it is the difference between a 700 and a 7,000 word day. So, in our case, that would be, like, the difference between, like, staring at Netflix all night or getting, like, 2 hours of painting in, right? And the difference isn't necessarily, like, reflective of you. Like, it's not that you're necessarily, like, like, it's not that you're not motivated or that you're just not in the mood or that your muse has abandoned you or that it may not even be that you're burned out. Instead, what Becca says is the difference between a 700 and a 7,000 word day is, what did you have for breakfast? Did you have a fight with your spouse or your neighbor or your kid? Did you, like, have to go to the doctor for a test you were really dreading? It's all this environmental stuff. It's the little stuff. Did you spend an hour on your phone in the morning and end up feeling tired and stressed? All this stuff, all this environmental stuff. So if you are running into that lack of creativity, lack of creative energy, just really don't feel like painting, don't assume it's painting. It could be something in your environment that's totally taking your energy. Yeah, there is plain luck, but with creative things, with especially with creative things where it's just like you can see the next step, but you don't sit down and do it, it's often environment. Now, some people can just ignore environment. Some people have, like, the type of mind that they just can put the blinkers on and go, and it doesn't matter what day, right? In that case, the luck is going to be more, did you find the right thing? But when you're dealing with painting or with writing, I find it's a little different because it's less luck dependent, right? You sit down, you know what you're going to do. If you don't know what you're going to do in writing, sometimes that stalls you. But with painting, it's like, well, I can sit down and put a base coat on, right? But I don't. So why? Yeah, I say less unforeseen complications. They come up in painting, but, like, because if you really screw something up, it can totally kill your desire to move forward. But when it's a repeated thing and you notice that you're lacking motivation specifically, or energy, creative energy, like, I felt like working on my book was the biggest slog for the last 3 weeks. And instead, now, suddenly, when I'm coming out on the other side of all of this disruption in my day, like all this health disruption and worry and stress and refrigerator disruption and worry and stress, suddenly my creative energy is back. Boing! Huge! It's here. So it's like, I was all worried about burnout, but it wasn't burnout at all. It was my environment. So, sure, it can be unpredictable stuff, right? But let's face it, when you sit down to paint a miniature, there's very little unpredictable unless you put a color on it, and it absolutely sucks. And there will be those days. But you won't see those days like necessarily consistently, unless you're working on trying different new colors, right? So you have to figure out the logic part of that, right, Big Chimpo? Yeah. Butt warmers actually don't, like, in cars, they weird me out. But yeah, it's environment. It's some places, like, you find it easier to, like, do your work, and some you don't. Yep. Yes, and sometimes that works, Slayer, but for me, what I find is that it's not necessarily an effective escape, and maybe that's because I also do it for work. I'm not sure. But then again, writing is very, I mean, I'm working with my mindset on writing because it's like, it's not my job, right? I have been treating it mentally like my job, where I'm stressing every day if I don't get the words in. But in reality, writing is a tiny fraction of my income, like teensy tiny, guys, right now. And so it's kind of dumb of me to assign all this stress to it. Do I want to get the third book done? Yes. Do I want to get it done, in decent time? Yes. But is it going to kill me if I don't get it done by, like, end of April, mid-May? No, it's not going to kill me. That's perfectly acceptable. It'll be even be acceptable if I put it out in the summer and put the next one after it out in the winter. Like, my goal is two books a year. And even that, some people would say, is way too ambitious for somebody who's not writing full-time. That, of course, depends totally on the type of creative you are and how fast you move. Hey, Matt Teabagger, we're talking about how environment can influence creativity, negatively or positively. Nice, Matt Teabagger. Yeah. And again, this is like different for different people, right? My brain is, and I forget which set of strengths it is, but there are a set of strengths that are very, very impacted by external stimuli. And to the point where when you don't have a stable environment, you really feel like kind of crushed or muffled, or you just like, your creative energy dies, right? Just like, it like huddles down and waits for the stress to pass, and then it bounces back. So what I was saying is, don't blame yourself if you have a long string of DNFs or cannot works or don't paint for, several months when you've got stress going on. Because it may be that you have that kind of brain where stress shuts you down creatively. And it's a totally separate thing from what Chimpo was saying with, sometimes it can just be luck, right? Sometimes you try a model and it just doesn't work, or you try a new color and it just doesn't work. That's just, that's just the things that happen when you're doing creative iteration. But when you notice a slump, when you notice, just a consistent thing, you start to wonder if you're lazy or depressed or burned out. And actually it turns out you're none of these things. All that mattered was your environment wasn't stable, or wasn't peaceful, or wasn't whatever you need, right? Like, some people with high empathy, if they've had a fight with a loved one or a friend, that totally disrupts their creative life. Like, they find it hard to do anything. And it's not because they're like, it's not them. It's the environment acting on them. And it's just the way they're wired, right? I mean, you can sometimes figure out what's causing it. If you've realized, like I have, that stable environment is so important to me. It's a very rare environment of upheaval where I can actually be effective. So the next time I run into this, instead of fretting about it or wondering if it's me or if it's my creative process that's hanging up or if I'm burning out, instead of that, I'm going to stop and ask myself, what's my environment like right now, right? It's about cutting yourself some slack. So what you're suggesting, Big Chimpo, is totally fair and totally an effective way to go about it. Just say maybe tomorrow and move on. But if the other thing is sometimes these external stimuli you can control. So if you come home from work and you're excited about painting, or you talked to yourself, I'm going to paint tonight, and you sit there on your phone doom scrolling for an hour, while you're making dinner, and then suddenly after dinner you have no urge to do anything, you feel so tired, you're just going to sit there and stare at Netflix, it's probably environment. Or you come home, you have a fight with your kid, and suddenly you just don't feel like doing anything except staring at the TV. Things like that. And we don't think about it a lot, right? We don't troubleshoot a lot. We're like, well, maybe tomorrow will be better. I'll just do it tomorrow, right? But if it's something that you can control, obviously the fight with your kid probably you couldn't control maybe. But the phone doom scrolling you can totally control. I forgot to line her fingers and her little toes. Oh no! Well, we're going to do that. But yeah, so having the shrug off attitude works for some and can work for some situations, and sometimes it really is the best thing. If you can't control it, maybe tomorrow. Don't worry about it or dwell on it. But if you look at it and you're like, okay, this is something I can control. I can stop going on my phone and doom scrolling when I come home, right? And then I'll have more creative energy for later in the evening when I want to paint. This is something that this is why I dropped social media, guys. And actually, that's one of the first things that my coach recommends people do is the first thing in the morning, don't pick up your phone. If you want to be creative or you want to have energy more energy for the morning, don't pick up your phone in the morning. Put it to the side. Set like some time to do email later or whatever, because it can just sap you. And some people it isn't. Some people it isn't a problem for. Some people can pick up social media and just put it right back down. But a lot of us are, it sucks us in. That's why I stopped Facebook and Insta and everything. Right. So for you, it's not an environment thing. Big Chimpo. For you, it's more working with the resistance and figuring out how to lower your bar. That's the biggest thing that helped me with resistance, is realizing that when we get resistance to doing something creative or a big project that we're excited about, but suddenly we feel resistance to it, and the more important it is to us, the bigger resistance we're going to get. I hit this with writing all the time. The most important thing that you can do is to lower your bar. So right now, looking at the project, the bar is way too high for you to step over. So you're going to go procrastinate. So you need to lower that bar until it's so easy to step over that you do it. So with a miniature, that is, I'm going to work on my Tiamat tonight. Oh my God, that's such a huge project. How am I even going to, I don't even know, I haven't thought about. No, I'm going to sit down and prep this one head of my Tiamat tonight. I'm just going to prep it and I'm going to prime it, if I feel like it. But mostly I'm going to prep it, I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to imagine what I could do with it. I'm going to lower the bar until the next step becomes so easy and so unstressful and undemanding that I can easily step over the bar. Okay? Yes, exactly. That's the bar. Yeah, small initial tasks. We all tend to go from 1 or 2 to 10 in our heads. And that's just overwhelm right there. That's the recipe for instant overwhelm. And again, this isn't true of everybody. All this stuff's really individual because the nuances between us, as far as humans go, humans are very similar. But the nuances between us, the little things, our upbringings, how we've learned to execute on our daily lives, the way we think, These things are where we all become very unique. Personality tests work because of the broad similarities. But when it comes down to the nuances, that's why I'm in coaching. I've learned as much as I can from the broad similarities. But yeah, it's the nuance. It's figuring yourself out. But a lot of this stuff, you can at least try it if you're having issues. That's pretty cool. Bought TMAT so they can paint it, divide it up and paint it. That's really cool. Yep, exactly. Break it into pieces. Yep. Yeah, so you can call that lowering the bar or breaking up the project or, looking for next steps. However you frame it, it's the same kind of thing. You're essentially derailing the resistance at its root by making the task not as scary. So I'm just going through and kind of adjusting. I lined the little toes so that they show up now. That's good. Make sure I got them working on the top here. Yeah, I could get a little bit more. And for very small things like this, you can thin your liner a little bit more too, but I'm going to do the fingers up here before I do that. But yeah, if you have noticed in the past that you do react when your environment is in disruption, do maybe question. There is the example my coach always uses of a writer that she coached in the past. There were some days that this writer used to be very, very, very productive. And then at some point, they just their whole schedule just went out the window. There were just some days they woke up she was like, I just wake up angry. I just don't want to do anything. And so essentially the coach questioned her until they figured out what it was, and it was the weirdest thing. She essentially had an argument with a neighbor that wasn't resolving, and the neighbor was on the HOA and everything, and so it was not an easy resolution. It was not going to get resolved anytime soon, if ever, while they lived in that house. And the days where she just woke up out of sorts and couldn't work were the days her husband, who worked third shift, would come home and forget to lower the blinds in the bedroom. She would wake up looking right at her neighbor's house. And that was enough to trigger her every day that happened so emotionally that she couldn't work. And she never realized what it was until they really broke it down. So that's how important environment can be and how subtle it can be as far as influencing your mood, right? And But yeah, once they figured that out, she just always closed the blinds herself, and she didn't leave it to her husband, and she went back to normal productivity. She still had problems with the neighbor, but it wasn't hitting her in the head every morning at the start of the day. Right, so it can just be really subtle, the things that tick your brain off. And a lot of times it's a subconscious level, right? It's something you've got and it just triggers you. You have no idea, you didn't do it consciously. It's like you say, blue aluminum siding, right? If you grew up and had a terrible childhood and your house had blue aluminum siding, I bet you totally, have a reaction to it. And you probably don't even realize it, right? That's when it's worth maybe trying to figure it out. Sometimes it is just bad luck, like Blue Chimpo brought up. Sometimes it's just not a good day for it, for one reason or another. But if you notice something consistently popping up, then it might be worth trying to figure out what it is. I recently realized that I had a huge trigger aversion to the word lazy. I had some people earlier in my life. I had to sit down and figure this out. I really would feel kind of self-loathing if I thought I was being lazy or not, if I wasn't producing at the level that I thought I should, or I was behind in my Patreon or whatever, right? And I would just have this huge, self-disgust feeling. So recently that popped up while I was, and this is why this darn coaching is so darn useful, guys. So I had to question it. Like, I noticed it and I had to question it because of the coaching stuff. And I realized it was because when I was younger, people in my life thought that I was just lazy. And it's like, I was one of those kids who like never would do the project till the absolute last minute. I would still get it done, but I would like do it absolutely at the last minute. Like, I wouldn't work any harder than I had to get things complete when I was a kid. It turns out that that is something that's like one of my strengths. Like, most kids with this strength are like this, and a lot of adults are. You guys probably know it, but that kind of thing, like, you know, somebody who has that kind of thing, or yeah, Zachariah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of thing where you're like, the minute you come in, they start with their drama and you're just like, oh my god. And it takes all the energy out of you, right? Especially if you're an introvert. Especially if you're like an intellectually based introvert too, where you know, emotional stuff, or even like if you're more empathetic, emotional stuff can really hit you hard. But yeah, so I essentially realized that like I have this aversion to the word lazy because like when I was a kid, people would tell me, even though I was getting things done, even though I was getting A's and B's in school, everybody still thought I was lazy. I had a friend when I went out, when I was getting ready to go to the Golden Demon competition in 2002, where I won my Golden Demon, my first Golden Demon. I was getting ready to enter that competition. I was all excited about driving back out to Baltimore. And I had one of my longtime college friends apparently tell another friend who told me, oh, she'll never win, she's too lazy. Because I had essentially, you know, put off working on the project until it was coming up, and then I was just busting my ass on it. And so yeah, this person actually said, oh, she's never going to win, she's too lazy. That person was the first person I called after I won. The person who said I was too lazy. But it's still there, right? That whole like thing. Right. It means they're not necessarily what they want you to do, but what they expect you to do, right, Sagebrush? Whatever they think is best practice. My dad used to throw this at me too, and there's another reason it's a trigger. You know, if they think you should be executing in a different way than you are, then they start throwing that you aren't, you know, then they start throwing that kind of stuff at you. Yeah, that is very much British, isn't it? I read enough British mystery fiction. I love British mysteries, troll holes. So I understand. I feel like I understand that British mindset. But at the same point, right? Like, I have read British authors who also are like, yeah, but that kind of got us through World War II. Kind of got us through the Blitz. That whole, you know, like, everything is terrible, but oh well, everything is always terrible. We just move on. So yeah. Yeah, it's not, yeah, it is a certain way of thinking. It's a certain way of thinking where you're like, you know, I know I can execute on this. I know I can get it done. I don't need to do it until it's a week before the thing, right? I can just do these other things. And sometimes it isn't even conscious that we're thinking that, right? I would often like go and swear to myself that, okay, I'm gonna start working on this early. And maybe I would do one day of work on it. And then it would just go until it was the week it was due. And then I would finish it. Yeah, the stiff upper lip. Yep. It's very unlikely that I have ADHD, seriously. Because I have no problem focusing when it comes down to it. No problem at all. Like, even like me, I'm the kind of person who when I'm in a project, like yesterday I told myself, oh, I'll just spend a few minutes outlining my PDF for a $5 tier. An hour and a half later, I was totally sunk into it, you know, still sunk into it. I had to haul myself out so that I could take Kiki out. So I have a really good ability to focus, actually. It has to be, but it's like I have to like, if I don't make myself focus, it's very easy for me to skip around and go la 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 from one project to the next. But when I put my head down, interesting. Hyper focus, huh? I have a lot of focus, but it's my superpower. I don't know though, because I don't know. I guess I could look into it. I don't think so. I've read and listened to some stuff on ADHD to try to understand some of my students are more like that way. But all of my idiosyncrasies are very much described like in my strengths profile. Yeah, the grousing. Yeah, they can get you. I'll look it up though, seriously. I'll take a look at it. Yeah, I have no problem triggering the focus though. See, that's the thing. I've never struggled with this so much. Not that I can remember. But I'll look into it. I mean, although I don't know, because if I'm like, does it matter if I'm ADHD if I execute well and am fine with my workflow, right? I don't know. Oh, yeah. Let me look. Yeah, see, I don't have a problem triggering my focus. Oh, you're focused. Let me ask you 7 questions. Oh, no! I see. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'll look it up. That'll be an interesting dive. I like learning, so it's... And like I said, I have a lot of students and people in my Patreon who identify as ADHD, so... I guess the reason I'm a little resistant to it is that, like, it was always presented to me like having, like, I don't know, it just, maybe I'm resistant to it because the idea of looking at it because I don't want something to blame it on, right? Like, I'm more like, this is just how my brain works. But I guess that's just me and my, like, childhood, like, you know, crap coming to the fore where my parents were just like, that's just excuses. That's just excuses. You know, again, your mom and dad telling you crap that you internalize and your brain treats as true, even though it's not, right? We all have that. But yeah, I promise I will look into it. I should understand it anyway because I've got people I'm teaching. Right. See, that's kind of how I feel. Thank you, Quindy. I was having trouble putting words into that. Like, when I have a struggle... It's like, the reason I'm so into this strengths coaching stuff is that when I do have a struggle, my coaches can totally resolve that for me. Like, they understand why it's happening, they explain why it's happening because of the way I think, and then I'm like, oh my god, you're right. And then I can take steps to kind of, you know, work with it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do have struggles, and I share with you guys when I do. But in general, these days, the writing is more, I think, a lot of that is coming from the fact that, again, I'm trying to treat it like my subconscious little Anne, who always wanted to be a writer above everything else, wants me to treat writing as, like, my main job. And I have to tell little Anne, no, it's not our main job. It's not even close to our main job. We can't prioritize it like that. We can't stress ourselves out like that. It's not worth it. It's not there yet, right? All we need to do is have fun with it and finish books at a decent pace. Like, that's it. That's all the expectation I should have about my writing right now. That's it. Zero else. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, at this point, it's a collection of personality traits versus a diagnosis. Yeah, that's how I feel like, because people can help me, like, if I do have hang-ups, if I do kind of grind to a halt, I have people now who can help me who are specifically creative coaches, right? And honest to God, I can see myself 10 years from now, like, telling people one of the biggest regrets I have is that I didn't do this earlier. But I have a hard time asking for help. I have a really hard time asking for help. And so it took me a long time. I thought about, like, hiring, I thought about paying for coaching before when I first discovered, like, this whole, the Better Faster Academy. I was like, oh. And then I immediately disregarded it. Like, no, I don't need that. No, you know. But it comes down to I am very much an independent sort, and I tend to be a solo actor a lot of the time. It's not that I can't be a good part of a team. I can be, but I prefer to work alone. And so for me to reach out for help on that scale, like, it took a long time. Yeah, it's hard, right? Polly, it's just hard to say because some people really like they need that diagnosis. It's valid, and it's something that helps them to like work with people that help them. Yeah. No, it's fair though that he brought up the it's fair that seriously brought it up. I mean, it's something I hadn't ever thought of. And I appreciate it that people like would notice similarities. Like, yeah, I do that myself. Ah, okay. No, I don't think seriously was doing that though, Kodiak. I feel like maybe they were just saying, "Oh, that really resonated with me and have you ever looked into this?" And that's totally cool. That is totally cool. My personal little Weasley struggle with when you brought it up was just my internal little, just like other people are saying, is like the struggle with considering a diagnosis a problem, especially with all the medical crap I've been through. The one thing that I've actually never worried about is my own brain. It's just a part of me. And through the years, like, me and my brain have come to a pretty good relationship. I'm going to look into it because I'm curious, especially curious about the statement that it can express differently in women. That's cool. That's nothing I had ever heard of. I'm always interested when stuff like that, especially because not always, but often, there is a difference in the way we think between men and women. Just a little bit. I wonder if that's true. I should ask Becca when she coaches me if there's a correlation with certain strengths between the sexes, or if it's all like just equal. Like, if it is equal, like if there aren't particular strengths that favor men or women, I would argue that maybe we think a lot more alike than we think we do. All right, so we're just refining now, guys. We're getting that softer kind of blended look as I work with these shadows and blend them in. I'm working with bringing some of these like nice subtle skin shadows up. She's got musculature, and I want to gently bring it out. You can see those little bits, and I'll do more with highlighting. You want to gently bring it out on women. You don't want to really like have really cut women unless they are sculpted intentionally like that. When you've got those cut muscles, then you definitely do want to bring them out. That's the way the sculpt is. But when you've got the softer musculature, but it's there, we can see it, right? And my shadows are bringing it more out. Hey, CHB, thanks for the Prime sub. No, it's all good. It's all good, guys. Just deep breath, deep breath. I know you're not all being judgmental. I know that some of you have direct experience with this. I do not mind at all. It's all good. Deep breath. I know none of you are trying to attack anybody else. It's just that sometimes strong feelings come out, so I totally get it. Thanks, Quindy, for putting what I was thinking in words, though. It was hard to get to the bottom of that. Sometimes I struggle. Most of the time, I have no problem kind of describing how I'm feeling, but yeah, it's an interesting thought. But yeah, so essentially, now I'm doing work on myself as far as like that whole lazy trigger thing. Like, now that I understand it, because I did the same thing with stupid, with that word, which can really, if you ever had a childhood where people kept like treating you like you were dumb, or in my case, it was a family member who constantly said, "Are you stupid?" You know that you can have these loaded words, and unfortunately, they can carry over into our creative lives. So I worked a lot so that, like, the word stupid, like, I just kind of look at people now if I get that crap. Because I'm like, no, actually I'm not. Sorry, guys. Had a little bit of roughness there I had to take out, so now we have to paint that over. It's not a big deal because I'm painting right over the plastic anyway, so I can do that. It's okay. Yeah, you're all good. Deep breath. Love each other. I know you guys are full of hearts for the world at large, so don't worry. But yeah, so I worked enough with the whole stupid thing that now I'm just like, it doesn't even affect me anymore. Like, if somebody wants to, like, give me that crap, I'm going to just be letting it roll right off of me. But I didn't know, I didn't realize that the lazy word was the same way. That it was, like, really, really self-judgy at me. So now I've got to work on that. Because I don't want that bomb sitting in me, ready to derail me. Because it isn't, really. Like, when an ant is functioning at a good level, it's not laziness. I do have my lazy days. We all have those days where we just don't feel like it, right? And that's just natural. That is not a reflection on your character. We all just have those days. Just shrug it and move on. And as Big Chippo said, oh well, there's always tomorrow. It's only when you see those days turn into, like, a cavalcade of, like, months and then years that you have to question maybe what the root is. But when you just have one of those days where you just don't feel like it, like, that's totally human. And this kind of goes back to, like, the writing and the painting, too, is, like, for most of you, painting isn't your job, you know? It's what you do for fun. So don't let yourself be all judgy about yourself on that. Like, it's your hobby. If you choose not to do it, that's okay. If you want to take several months or even half a year or a year off, do it. Like, that's fine. Come back to it when you're excited about it again. Like, I'm not going to guilt anybody into painting when I myself have had very long dry spells due to either, you know, just general weirdness or burnout or being more interested in doing other things, right? It's fair. It's life. So what I did here is I brought in, you guys saw I brought in that strong shadow. Then I took my base skin tone color and I just put a real thin layer of it over that shadow. So you can still see the shadow here between her tendons on the top of her hand. You can see those shadows, just real subtle. And when I put in highlights, they'll come out a little bit more, but it's still not to the extent of the lining on the actual fingers. That's kind of, again, it's a real subtle effect, but I like to see it. Yeah, that's a bummer, Twisted Oma. You know, your mom and dad give you, like, they give you all the stuff that, like, they learned, right? When you're growing up. You absorb all their stuff. And a lot of that stuff is good. Let's face it. But no human is perfect. And so we're all going to get some stuff that may have worked really well for them, but doesn't work really well for us right now, right? So it's less that I would blame my parents for anything like this. And more that I'm just like, you know, these mechanisms probably worked great for them. And just don't work that well for me. Like, we're all, again, we come back to, we're different. We're leading different lives in a different world. Like, we have different challenges. We have a lot of the same challenges. But these days, with technology being what it is, sometimes it expresses in different ways. So we're putting some see those nice shadows, just real subtle. As I go back through and I bring in highlights, those will come out more. But I don't want it to be cut. I just want us to see those details. I want us to see those really nice details. Romanticism devotee, huh? Yeah, you can be the smartest person in the world, though. If your dad or mom tells you that you're dumb all the time, then you believe it. Like, as a kid, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's not about your relative intelligence at that point. I always hear the example of There's all sorts of examples of kids who were like absolutely super smart, but because they'd been told all the time that they weren't, they believed it. So, yeah, sometimes we just get struggles. We get struggles put on us. But we don't have to, like, sit there and take it. Alright, and just, again, I'm kind of blocking in some shadow here with my brown liner. I even have a little bit of that pinky skin tone in there, the pinky skin shadow that I mixed with the ruddy leather. It doesn't really matter what color the shadow is that I'm putting in here, because as I paint over it, it will just make everything look a little darker. Hey, Richard. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of stuff. We're talking about, we're talking kind of about, like, motivation and, I was talking about, like, how your environment can impact your motivation from day to day if you're a certain type of thinker. Some people just don't even care. They just do their thing no matter what the environment is, but some people are really impacted by it. So sometimes when you really just are having trouble being creative, it's not actually anything about you, it's about your environment. So yeah, just more, the usual psych talk. And I was sharing some of the challenges I had growing up. Things that I absorbed from other people, friends, parents, that weren't necessarily true for me and weren't serving me very well. So I'm just putting in this warm kind of skin color in the shadow just to keep that shadow defined here. Yeah, the usual, Yeah, that's just it. I know everybody, like, sometimes things get brought up here that we have a really emotional response to, and that's perfectly okay. But in the end, guys, this stream should be a safe place to talk about stuff like this. I really value it for that. I really value you guys having you guys around to listen and give your own experiences and things like that. I think that's makes us a really awesome stream, and I appreciate you all. Yeah, I mean, just do it and try to just give yourself, like, the grace to do it, Kodiak. Like, if you've been in a slump, as you go back, actually what could be really useful for you, may or may not, but as you go back to the painting, just try to, like, relax as you do it and kind of listen to your gut. If something crops up that feels like resistance or kind of like dislike or uncomfortableness or anything like that, kind of pay attention to that thing. Figure out where it's coming from. You could use this as a tool. And if your slump is like something like that, it might help you to diagnose it. But, your slump could also be that you just have a really busy life and a new puppy. And maybe you just don't have the energy, right? So this is the thing. Oh. Jenna quoted a poem by Philip Larkin. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know who the poem was from. I realized they quoted a poem. Wrapped up in bacon or meat-free substitute. Dear me. All right, so we've gotten a lot of shadows on here. And you guys know I like to put my shadows in first because it kind of defines the masses of the shapes that we're working with. And then when I bring my highlights in, we can really see things come up. All right, so I was going to go back and line the toes, but I was going to thin my liner a little bit more, and the reason is that these are so tiny. I don't want big, blobby black lines, right, or dark lines. I want something a little more refined. Bacon wrapped scallops. This stream is bacon wrapped scallops for emotions. Oh yeah, this is a nice model. I mean, she's tiny. Her biggest challenge is that she's tiny. So I think I'm going very slowly on her because she's so small. Nothing tastier sounding than meat-free substitute. Well, unless you're Cornico, Quindy, in which case meat-free substitute probably sounds great. Although I think even Kuro doesn't really. I don't know if she eats veggie burgers or she just sticks to veggie stuff. It's the quarterly challenge, but renamed and redone, and they've got they brought back one of the older Werner Klock models from Warlord, Richard, as is it a 3D printer or is it Bonjour USA, guys? But they remastered an old Werner for it, so it's cool. Like, I was even tempted. But I don't want to compete in the Reaper challenge, obviously. But I might, I need to order one because I was thinking about painting it on the stream. And I'm almost done with a couple of things, so I do need more models. Bonjour USA. Yes, thank you. Get all the info there. And I think I wrote down the name of the mini. Yeah, I've got the mini and the name and the number, so. Oh, is Werner going to work for us again? That's great. Yeah, I mean, some of the best stuff that ever came out while I was working as a staff painter was Werner. I'm a Werner fan. I'd be very happy if he came back and did more stuff for us. Oh, that's really cool, Blue Nine. Sweet. Yeah, it'll be good to see some new Werner stuff. That's especially because we have the ability to do such nice high detail stuff now with the 3D print and the Bonjour USA. And Werner's stuff always had nice detailing. And we got tiny little toes. Tiny toes. Such tiny little toes. Look at those tiny little toes. So essentially by going with a lighter, more faded liner, I can do this and still get definition without it being clunky looking and without having to fight big blobs of dark paint. Richard. Oh dear. I never painted that model because Liliana had done such a good version of it, so it's time to get that. I could use some new paint too. I'm running out low on some colors I use a lot, so. Hey, Inara. It's okay. It's all cool. We accept that your life moves on without us, and sometimes you have to deal with it and not hang out with us. We miss you, though. It's a good day. We had a nice discussion earlier about how environment can impact your productivity. And hopefully, this will be the last week where I have a bunch of, like, med disruption stuff. I have to go to sit and do labs today. And then I think I have to go back and turn in one thing tomorrow. And then I think I'm done. Done for right now. Here, little foot. Yeah, I still have some old freebooter stuff too, Richard. Don't let it happen again, Quindy. Oh, poor kitty. I hope she's okay. I'm gonna get this highlight color and start putting in a little bit here and there. Good deal, Inara. Glad she's doing okay. Fingers crossed. Oh, David and I decided we needed to get Kiki a dog bandana that says, "If I'm a good girl, wait 5 minutes." I know about shirt. I wouldn't dress Kiki in a shirt, but it's a great dog bandana idea. So I might have to get a one-off made. I looked up a site that does one-offs. So just with the gnome flesh alone, just starting to bring in a little bit. Now this model does not have eyebrows actually sculpted, so we will have to paint them on. They go on the top of that brow ridge there. She looks a little odd without them right now, so when I do her hair, I'll paint those in. So with the gnome flesh, we're just going to go over. We're going to leave a little bit of a shadow between the eyes where the nose dips in. It was that Pink Floyd look, right? From the wall. So we'll get the cheekbone here. Hey Val, long time no see. This is a cute little model. So gonna get the top of that lip, like under the nose. On bigger models, you want to actually put a shadow under the nose that falls onto that upper lip area, but with tiny models, it's just not worth it. It looks wrong. So instead I put a highlight across that entire area above between the upper lip and the nose. And one on the chin. This isn't a true highlight color. It's kind of a first highlight. So we're going to hit all those areas on the chin. Makes the face stand out, as you can see. Weird, Val, yeah. Uh-huh. Ugh, take your allergy pills, Quindy. My nose has been bad today. My nose and my throat both. The allergies are attacking. News at 10. Kind of looking forward to going to Arizona because they should disappear. So a little bit of highlight on top there. Start bringing up the highlights. Oh, very cool. Oh, that's cool, Quindy. Not cool that the kitty passed away, but really cool that there's a little emoji in honor of the kitty. Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, yep. Yeah, I was having sore throats a lot. And I wondered what was going on, but I think it's just we got more rain yesterday. I think it's attacking me. Okay, good. At least one of us. I mean, my pill's a 24-hour pill, and I take it in the evening. But yeah, this morning, oof, Papa. Oh, Papa's asleep. I shouldn't wake her up. Tomorrow, snow, huh? I'm heading to Arizona next week, and I cannot wait. 1 week from today, I will be on a plane. Assuming the flight attendants aren't all on strike. So as we start highlighting, we're going to kind of pay attention to where I put shadows before. We don't want to impinge on those. We want to bring out the subtleties of the musculature. So as part of my creative homework, I'm supposed to like watch stuff that reminds me that failing is not that failing is learning, that failing is like iteration, like that it's not a bad thing. So I've been watching the Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance. It's actually really cool. It's weird. I'm not a sports person, but when I was just in college, it was when the Dream Team went to the Olympics, USA basketball. So, like, I am very much a fan of, like, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and all that era of basketball for some reason, like, totally caught in me. And so I'm really enjoying watching the Jordan documentary. I had forgotten that he actually won a gold medal in Olympic basketball when he was still an amateur. So yeah, there is one sport. If somebody tied me down and said you have to watch one sports ball thing for the rest of your life, like you have to, I'd have to pick basketball. It's a silly thing. I just don't know why, but normally I'm not a sports person, as you guys know. Slow horses. What's that one about, Inara? And we gotta remember to get the little ear here with a highlight. And since it's the first highlight, I'll actually get both the upper and lower edge if I can. It's a tiny little ear, so it's hard. Funny. Mild, dry winter in Wisconsin, huh? That's interesting. Yeah, like when my mom was in southeastern Wisconsin, they got a huge snowblow Trojan. I don't know what area you are in the state, but I grew up around down around Kenosha in Kenosha County, southeast corner. About 20 minutes from Lake Michigan and 5 minutes from the border with Illinois. And Mom sent me a picture of the huge snow they had a couple weeks ago. Oh, Milwaukee County. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I went to school in Madison. My brother went to school in Milwaukee. It's probably good to have a mild winter in the city. The other thing you can remember when you're dealing with thinned paints, if you put down a highlight color and then you're like, oh no, and you need to paint your midtone over it again, because maybe it gets grainy or it gets a little patchy or it's weird. The thing about it is, since you put on that lighter color, if your midtone is at all thinned, it's going to look lighter when you put it over that color than it did when you just put it over your regular as a base. Oh wow, basketball, really cool. Yeah. Very British dark comedy. Oh, try to solve cases utterly fail. I don't know. I don't think I could do that one. I would be sad. I would be so sad for them. So sad. I have too much empathy for fictional characters. So as we come through here, we're going to try to pick up just a little bit of some of this musculature. Remember to keep your highlights shaped. Notice how my highlight is rounded, because this whole muscle is that shape. I also picked up one of the Robert Jordan autobiographies, actually. I realized that since I'm on an autobiography kick lately, and I finished my Julie Andrews one, which I loved, by the way. Although it just reinforces that Hollywood life is crazy. There. So you bring in those highlights. I may need to work on this part. You get more of the sense of the musculature. And if you keep them subtle, then you get that kind of smooth blended look that we'd like to see on a lot of female figures. But yeah, actually, if you look on my bookshelves and you like look in the hidden back corners of Anne's bookshelves, you find books on basketball, like the Dream Team and stuff like that, and the Magic Johnson versus Michael Bird, kind of co autobiography that they did, because those two had such a rivalry, or co-biography, I should say, or no, yeah, biography, not an autobiography, written by other people, but lots of interviews with them. So it's my little secret sports vice that I don't indulge very often. Because let's face it, like, a lot of the time watching basketball can be boring. It really depends on, like, the style of basketball being played. I really loved the Magic Johnson era because he was so good at the fakes and the feints and all the misleading, misdirection. Really cool plays. But yeah, these days when I try to watch it, sometimes I'm like, all right, this is just boring. There we go. So just painting over some of this shadow here to make it a little bit more fade in. So you get that nice smooth musculature kind of thing. And let's get the top of that hand now, right before we end the stream. And just get a little bit, so we get those tendons to come out just a little bit more. And I'll usually paint a first highlight across most of the back of the hand, just to blend in and highlight that area. There we go. So you can see that nice highlighting. And notice how we keep this more in shadow. I did keep a little bit of highlight coming down, but because the arm is more vertical here, you're not going to get as much light on this part as you are on these parts that are very much facing the light. So that's the kind of effect you're looking for. So you can see how those highlights are really playing into the skin tones now. Got a little bit, need to blend in this bit a bit. There we go. So you can see again, that's kind of smooth musculature that we're getting here, highlighting around where we brought in that. And this takes time, just like, I mean, any smooth blended kind of thing. It's easier on these little small models though, once you have the brush control. So it's like when you have brush control but not blending yet, not layering yet, if your layering isn't like really great, smaller surfaces are more forgiving than bigger ones when you've got your brush control but you don't have your layering. Conversely, if you've got like your paint consistency and layering down but you're not that great at brush control, that's when big models are more forgiving for you. So if both of them are equal, then all things are equal and it doesn't matter what you paint, but with that in mind, because when you're on very tiny areas like this, any flaws in blending aren't going to be very apparent unless you like really get magnification and get close, which most people aren't going to do. A small area is much easier to just like kind of like do like blocked highlights and with just a minimum of blending and still have it look great. Yeah, so smaller areas are going to be more forgiving because it disguises any faults in layering and blending you've got. Because a lot of us have like where we, as you say, is you may have worked on developing one skill, but you don't have all the skills yet. So there are definitely, like if you have the opposite, if you've worked on your blending but you don't have really great brush control, I'd say definitely look at working on bigger models where it's more forgiving. You don't have to do really, really fine detail on a lot of those. But yeah, this sort of thing takes time, but it gives you a really nice effect. We didn't really get to like continue a lot of the like lightening on the skin on the wings yet, but we'll work on that. Looks like we're about set. For today. So we've managed to get our skin looking better. These wings are just such an odd angle there. So it's coming along. Friendly and snarky at the same time. And where can emojis come from? Yes. Yeah. That's fair, Richard. That's fair. With an army, it's like, if you're going to get it done at all, you're probably going to get it done faster. Unless you just take your time and don't care if it takes you 5 years. We'll see. I definitely use some shortcut techniques if I'm painting an army figure, but I tend to still like really want to spend a little time on it. So my armies would take me forever to paint. All right, tea is finished. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming along. Tomorrow I will be here. We will paint the base on Vamp Barb. And once we are done with that, we will start on B. So those are our tasks for tomorrow. Yes, Vamp Barb and B. Indeedy. Yes. Thanks, Surgeon. Yeah. It should be a good day today. I think it's going to be a good day today. All right. Hotel rooms for the con. Thanks for reminding me, Nara. Thanks for reminding me. Oh, man. Oh. I don't know if we'll try. We'll try. I don't know. I still haven't decided about classes and stuff. So I don't want to totally depend on Ron. All right. Thanks, Sick. Thanks, Zachariah. All right, everybody. I hope you all have a lovely day. We're almost to the weekend. We're almost to the weekend. Yay, weekend. All right. I'll be happy when weekend is here. Y'all have a lovely one, and I will see you later. All right? Yeah, you bet. All right. Bye-bye.